In the spring of 1944, German intelligence officers at OKW studied photographs taken from reconnaissance aircraft over Normandy. They weren't counting tanks. They were measuring hedgerows. The ancient stone and earth walls had stood for centuries, marking Norman farms like a vast medieval fortress. By June 1944, the walls averaged 12 feet thick and 15 feet high. Their roots sunk 5 feet into Norman clay. Wehrmacht tactical doctrine had already given them a name: Buschkrieg, bush warfare. The hedgerows would turn every field into a kill zone. By early July, the predictions had proven correct. The 352nd Infantry Division, defending the approaches to Saint-Lô, had transformed the bocage into a nightmare. MG-42 positions covered every field entrance. Panzerfaust teams hid behind impenetrable vegetation. American tanks attempting to climb over the earthen berms exposed their thin belly armor for 3 fatal seconds, long enough for a single German gunner to punch through 18 millimeters of steel. The advance from the beaches to Saint-Lô cost the First Army 40,000 casualties. Lieutenant General Omar Bradley needed a breakthrough. He needed it before the Germans reinforced. And he needed it to start on July 25th, when Operation Cobra would launch the breakout offensive that would decide France. But his tanks couldn't move. Something else had happened. On July 8, 1944, Sergeant Curtis Grubb Culin III of the 102nd Cavalry Reconnaissance Squadron walked past a wrecked German beach obstacle near Omaha Beach. The Czech Hedgehog, 3 steel I-beams welded into a 6-pointed star, had been part of Rommel's Atlantic Wall. Rommel had ordered 2,000 of them planted in the surf to rip open Allied landing craft. Now they littered the sand, obsolete. Culin stopped walking. Within 2 hours, he had requisitioned an acetylene torch from the division maintenance company. By midnight, he had cut 4 prongs from a single hedgehog and welded them to the front of an M4 Sherman tank. The device looked crude. 4 steel tusks angled downward like a medieval battering ram. At dawn on July 9th, Culin's modified Sherman attacked a hedgerow outside Colombière. The tank hit the earthen wall at 12 miles per hour. The prongs bit into root and stone. The engine roared. The Sherman punched through in 4 seconds, debris exploding outward, infantry pouring through the gap before German defenders could reposition. 0 tanks lost. The 2nd Armored Division's operations officer watched the test run and immediately sent word to 7 Corps headquarters. The Germans first encountered the device on July 12th near La Chapelle-en-Jugé. They couldn't quite believe what they were seeing. A Sherman battalion, all 14 tanks equipped with steel prongs, tore through 6 hedgerows in 23 minutes. No belly armor exposure, no warning. German defensive positions, sited to cover known gaps in the hedgerows, became irrelevant as American armor created new gaps wherever they chose. Within days, Wehrmacht field reports reached 7th Army headquarters in Le Mans. The reports didn't describe a new tank model or a heavy breakthrough weapon. They described coordination. On July 14th, Bradley flew from 1st Army headquarters to observe a demonstration at the 2nd Armored Division assembly area near Cerisy-la-Forêt. Culin's Rhino, as the device had been nicknamed, performed flawlessly. 5 modified Shermans attacked a fortified hedgerow position. They broke through in under 90 seconds. Bradley watched German prisoners, captured in the simulated assault, stare at the steel tusks in confusion. Bradley issued orders before he left the field. Every ordnance company in 1st Army would begin welding Rhino cutters immediately. The steel would come from Rommel's beach obstacles. Hundreds of tons of structural I-beams now lying abandoned across 6 miles of coastline. The work would proceed around the clock. The deadline was July 24th. 11 days to outfit an army. By early July 1944, German commanders defending Normandy had grown confident. General Dietrich Kreis, commanding the 352nd Infantry Division, believed the bocage had created a defensive equilibrium. American infantry advanced slowly, taking brutal casualties for every 100 yards. American armor remained roadbound, vulnerable to ambush. Kreis estimated that the First Army would need 6 weeks to reach Avranches, the gateway to Brittany. He had time to rebuild his shattered regiments. What he didn't know was what First Army's ordnance companies were doing. On the night of July 15th, welding crews from the 17th Ordnance Battalion began cutting apart German beach obstacles. The work continued for 9 consecutive nights. Sparks lit up assembly areas behind American lines as metalworkers fabricated Culin prongs by the hundreds, each set requiring 45 minutes of welding. The sound carried across the front. German listening posts reported increased mechanical activity in American rear areas. 7th Army intelligence officers interpreted it as preparations for another frontal assault. More artillery, more infantry, the same grinding attrition. They were wrong. By July 24th, approximately 500 tanks in the First Army had been modified. That represented 3 out of every 5 tanks assigned to the Cobra breakout. On July 25, 1944, Operation Cobra began with a carpet bombing strike that obliterated German forward positions west of St. Lo. Then the Rhino tanks moved forward. What happened next stunned German commanders. American armor didn't advance along roads or through known gaps. They attacked everywhere simultaneously, bursting through hedgerows at unpredictable intervals, infantry following in tight coordination. German strongpoints, built to defend specific choke points, found themselves bypassed or hit from unexpected angles. The 352nd Infantry Division, already reduced to 3,000 effectives after 6 weeks of combat, began to disintegrate. Within 48 hours, 7 Corps had advanced 4 miles, more ground than First Army had gained in the previous 3 weeks. By July 28, the American spearhead had reached Coutances, 12 miles beyond the start line. German forces, attempting to retreat through the bocage that had once protected them, discovered that hedgerows worked both ways. Rhino-equipped Shermans cut off withdrawal routes faster than Wehrmacht units could reposition. The Panzer Lehr Division lost 60% of its remaining armor trying to escape encirclement. But there was something else. German after-action reports, filed in the chaos of the retreat, repeatedly mentioned a specific detail. American tanks equipped with ram attachments or hedge-breaking devices. Interrogators asked captured American tankers about the modifications. Most credited a sergeant in the 2nd Armored Division, a sergeant, not an engineer corps, not an ordnance research division, not a directive from SHAF. One enlisted man with a welding torch and a salvaged beach obstacle. For months, Wehrmacht intelligence had prepared assessments of American doctrine, American production capacity, American leadership. They had studied Bradley, Patton, Eisenhower. They had tracked division movements, fuel logistics, replacement rates. They hadn't accounted for improvisation. After the war, interrogators from the U.S. Army Historical Division interviewed surviving German commanders about the Normandy campaign. General Fritz Bayerlein, who commanded Panzer Lehr during Cobra, was asked what surprised him most about American tactics in the bocage. His answer was recorded in Foreign Military Study B 466. He didn't mention air superiority or artillery. He mentioned the hedge-cutting tanks that appeared suddenly and in great numbers during the last week of July. Bayerlein stated that the devices eliminated the primary advantage of bocage defense: predictable attack routes. We could no longer channel their armor, he said. They went through walls we believed were impassable. The Rhino wasn't a technological breakthrough. It was a tactical one. By the time Operation Cobra concluded on July 31st, First Army had broken through the bocage and reached Avranches. The road to Brittany and the road to Paris lay open. Patton's Third Army, activated on August 1st, poured through the gap created by Bradley's armor. The Normandy stalemate was over. Curtis Culin received the Legion of Merit for his invention. He never sought a patent. When asked about his motivation, he told reporters that he just wanted to get the job done. Production of Rhino cutters continued through August. By the time the First Army crossed the Seine in late summer, more than 1,000 tanks had been equipped with hedge-cutting prongs. Most units abandoned the devices once they left bocage country, but photographs show rhinos still attached to Shermans as late as September 1944, pushing toward the German border. The devices weren't needed anymore. The hedgerows were behind them. So why did one sergeant's improvisation break what an entire German army couldn't hold? Because Rommel built the Atlantic Wall to stop an invasion from the sea. He lined the beaches with steel obstacles designed to destroy landing craft in the surf. He calculated tonnage, trajectory, tidal schedules. He built a fortress facing the wrong direction. And when American armor needed something to break through the hedgerows, they used Rommel's own steel. The Germans had prepared for American doctrine. They hadn't prepared for American pragmatism. It was simple. It was brutal. And it cost them France. Culin fought the bocage the way Rommel fought the desert, with speed and improvisation and a willingness to use whatever worked, only better.